Welcome back to A Fine Time for Healing, a place where your physical, emotional, and spiritual well-being are all that matter. So put your feet up, relax, and enjoy today's show. Today we have with us Dianna Kokoszka. She is an award-winning entrepreneur, former CEO and business leader. She is a practitioner of neuro-linguistic programming and a founding member of the John Maxwell team of certified coaches. Her dedication to developing leaders and encouraging individuals to recognize and harness their innate potential has made her a prominent figure in the industry. Today, we're going to be talking about her book, Becoming More. You can't get to better until you get to different. We're going to talk about that today. Welcome, Dianna. Great to have you.
Thank you so much. I appreciate you having me on the show, Randi.
It's absolutely my pleasure. Okay, so the first question I want to ask you is, in your book, there's, I think it's a chapter or it's a statement maybe, that says grow within or go without. What does that mean?
Yes. Well, it basically is because anything that we desire, we have to become better in order to obtain it. You can't do something without being someone that's able to do it. So therefore, it's all about personal growth. And our businesses, our life grow to the extent that we do. In essence, it's kind of like, how does a magician get a rabbit out of a hat? Well, he puts it in there in the first place, right? Well, we have to put inside of us the skill, the knowledge, the wisdom in order to have it come out of us. So I always say that life is about personal growth, and either you grow within or you go without. Everything happens inside before it happens in our environment.
I like that. That's a great quote. It's so succinct, but so powerful. It really says so much. So, we're talking about your book, Becoming More, and you have the Becoming More model. So, it encompasses every facet of our lives that we will actively develop to continually evolve and progress. And I want to talk about the model, but why is it so important that we evolve and progress?
I think the big thing is we're either becoming more or we're going backwards. It's kind of like if you stand on a treadmill, well, you know what happens. You can look at it on YouTube. There's treadmill fails, right? Where people just stood there and got bumped off. Well, that's
Right.
kind of like life because the world is always moving forward. It's always evolving. And if we're not evolving with it, then we're sliding backwards. I believe that's a little bit as to why this middle class is going away. We've got to keep up and not keep up with the Joneses in having things. It's about who we're being and always allowing ourselves to read, to listen to podcasts like your podcast, to learn from other people and their successes as well as their failures.
So you actually have the pyramid right there next to you. So can we talk about this? So the being part starts with the current story of our lives, right?
Yes, ma'am. And whatever the story is, it really doesn't matter. You know, Randi, many people live in the past. Well, you don't know my past history. And quite frankly, I don't know their past history, yet I do know that whatever it was, it helped prepare them for where they are today. And now we get to make a choice. In my book, I talk about how life is lived between B and D, birth and death. And between B and D is C, and C stands for choice. And every choice we make impacts our lives. And from this story that we have created in our own mind, or we've allowed someone else to write for us, and we're living in someone else's storyland, then it all starts with our thoughts. And we have the power to change our mind. And when we change our mind, we change our life. And if we're going to navigate our life, our money, our business, the navigational tool that we use is our mind. It's our GPS system for our life. And based upon our thoughts that we have over and over and over again, those grow into beliefs. And what we think and believe creates our values. Those three go together and influences the emotions that we show. And we've trained our brain to think at a certain level. And every day, according to what research you read, Randi, there's 6,000 to 60,000 thoughts a day that we have unconsciously in our mind. And it's not the problem or the amount of thoughts that we have, it's the fact, either one way, it's a lot. It's that 90% of them are the same thoughts we had yesterday and the day before that and the day before that.
Yeah.
And 85% of those thoughts are termed negative. Well, we take all of these things, our thoughts, beliefs, values, and emotions, and they work together between our mind and our body. And that makes up our mindset, which is in our unconscious mind. Our mindset brings us forward with the perception and how we see the world. It determines the words that we choose, those habitual things that we talk about all the time, our character, and our goals. Then it's up to our personal development. And I'm going up the triangle, as you can see, from personal development. Well, then we have to encompass our energy. And I talk about the 4 energies of success. All of this allows us to make a new story and leave a legacy that we're proud of. And I kind of took this pyramid from Coach John Wooden. He had the success pyramid, and I looked at that every single day. And so as I thought about how our brain works and how we've trained our brain and how we're now training our brain to a new way of thinking, I worked with many doctors, read many neuroscience books, did a lot of research, and this is the way I believe that we can train our brain to a new story. Now, I know that was a long thing to say, yet each chapter of the book encompasses one of these bricks on the triangle.
Right. And we're going to go into some of those things. I like the way you broke it down. So my work is with narcissistic personality disorder abuse, recovery, the recovery part of it. And so changing thought patterns that are so deeply embedded due to brainwashing, mind control, is very, very difficult. And I know that so many of these aspects are things that we have to actually break through. But I like the way that you have sort of separated it, because it helps us to understand the process that we're going through as we make these changes. So you talk about characters that we choose to play, and there's some limiting ones and there's some liberating ones. So, and then you ask, what role have you played in the past? What will you play in the future with intention? So can you talk about those limiting and liberating characters that we choose to play?
Yes, ma'am. In every story, Randi, there are certain characters. We see this in movies, we see it in books. There is a victim, a villain, and a hero. And some stories include coaches and mentors and people that become the hero for us, right? Well, I always ask people, what role do you play? I mean, a victim talks about how people pick on them and they never have enough and everything is so bad. And then, of course, the villain loves to pounce on people and they tell stories about how they overcame somebody else and how they beat them up, so to speak. And then, of course, you've got the hero, and they tell stories of achievement, advancements, and how they served other people. And then coaches tell stories of achievement of others, and mentors, they tell stories of their wisdom, their success, and as well as their failures, so people can learn from them. So when we look at these characters, which ones do we choose to play? See, the villain believes that, well, if I have what somebody else has, then I can do what they do and I can be like them and eventually give like they give. And that's incorrect. It is not have, do, be, give. The villain, of course, they believe you have to do more and more. You have to take away from other people in order to give. And they live their life with the do, have, be, and give. And yet the hero, the coach, and the mentor all do understand that it's about you've got to be it first in order to do it. So if you be like someone is being, think like they think, then you can do what they do, and then you can have what they have and eventually give what they give. So are we living our life in a limiting way, being the victim or the villain, or are we living it with a character that is liberating us, a hero, a coach, or a mentor?
Okay. And under the victim, some of the roles we play or the descriptions of the roles we play are the target, whipping post, fall guy, prey, laughing stock.
Yes, ma'am.
I've had people say to me, well, I came in this world to suffer for others. What do you
Oh,
say about that? Because I don't agree. But I just want to hear what you have to say about that.
well, first we make the choice, then the choice makes us. So if we've made the choice to live that character, then we're going to play out that character. Yet, how does that really serve the world? If we don't allow our light to shine, how do we allow other people's light to shine as well? Because I believe, like Marianne Williamson says, that when you allow your light to shine, you give the freedom for other people to allow their light to shine as well. Yet if we're always dimming our light, if we're putting that light under a bushel basket, so to speak, how can we light up the world? How can we really, truly help anyone else? I believe that people get behind and understand someone that becomes the hero of their own life. I mean, going from not being able to afford a babysitter, putting my kids in a little red wagon, going door to door, introducing myself as a realtor back in the 70s when it was pretty much a man's world, to be able to go from there to CEO of the world's largest coaching company and most profitable one was not because of what I was doing per se. I was learning from other people, allowing my personal growth to come in. And I believe that story allows other people to say, oh my goodness, if she can do it, I can do it.
Right.
And that's the truth. There's nothing truly special about me. It's if I can do it, you can do it. Therefore, we've got to give people hope. And I don't know how we give them hope if we're always like, oh, poor woe is me. I'm here to sacrifice for everybody else. Right.
Right.
That's just my take on it.
Right. It's hard to pull somebody out of that victim mentality. And this is one of the challenges that I have, and I eventually do. Um, but you're right. If you think that your life is just here to suffer and you make no contribution to the world, well, you're going to continue to suffer. But nobody is here to suffer. We all have, like you say, the same opportunity to do better, be better.
Randy, and you do such great work with people to get them out of that victimhood because that's the story that they've chose to live with. They sometimes I think we forget that we can hold the pen. That I mean, if we took our story right now, how would it read if it was a book? Would it be an adventure? Would it be a business book? Would it be a victim that's always being pounced on? I mean, what story are we living? And to understand we have the right and we have the privilege and we have this brain that can make a choice to change the story.
Mhm.
The problem is, and as I talk in my book, we have four storytellers in our head. The first storyteller is the devious one, and we all have it, and it's terrible. It tells us how we're not good enough. We'll never be good enough. We don't have enough money. We aren't smart enough. We're not tall enough. We're not skilled enough. I mean, it's always lack and bad things. And then the second one, well, that's the flattering storyteller, the one that says, "Oh, you already know everything. You don't need to learn. You don't need to listen to podcasts. You've already got this all figured out." And it tells us how great we are. The third one is the one that frightens me the most. It's the reasonable storyteller, the one that says, "Oh, you always have a reason, you always have an excuse, you're blaming other people." And as my dad taught me, when you point the finger that way, you got three more pointing back at you. Odds are 3-1, it's your own fault. The fourth storyteller, though, is the one I'd love for our listeners to feed. It's the empowering storyteller. It's the one that says, "You're going to make mistakes. You're going to mess up. You are only a failure if you don't get back up." So we learn, we implement, we fail, and we learn a new way. And that's how we're always becoming more, allowing ourselves to fail, not beating ourselves up, but picking up that pen and writing a new story based upon what we've learned.
Well said. Thank you. So I can, so many of us that are doing this work have come up through the trenches, okay? We've all gone through all of these things, right? And I remember feeling this way, but this is something that I hear from clients, that if I let go of my identity as a victim and someone who suffers, I'm terrified what will be. And I remember that feeling. It's like you're standing on the edge of a cliff, and it's like it feels like you're going to leap off of it into the abyss. So what do you tell people that have this fear?
Interesting in the world today, and I know you see a lot of the anxiety and the stress and the depression that is coming around because of those feelings, because of the stories that we keep telling ourselves in our head. And what I work with people is, I truly believe in affirmations. And no, they aren't true when you first start saying them. Yet the way, and you know this, Randy, the way that our brain works, and very simplified, and so don't get upset as I simplify it so much, yet you have a thought and it goes from one neuron along the axon to another neuron. And I know there's synapses and dendrites and all sorts of things involved, yet that's the simplistic part. It's kind of like walking across a patch of grass or over a field. And you walk over that grass once, it's no big deal. Maybe even twice. As you walk over it and over it and over it, it eventually becomes a rut where there is no grass and it's the only trail that you see. Well, because our brain loves fast, it loves easy. As we have those same thoughts over and over and over again, we literally hardwire that path. And that's why neuroscience says nerve cells that fire together wire together. And it's the only path our brain knows to go in. So we have to create a new path. We have to be intentional about that new path. And the greatest part is neuroscience says that nerve cells that no longer fire together, no longer wire together. Therefore, we can create a new path for our brain to go in. So I believe in the I am statements, in the positive present tense things of what we desire to be, and then do the work to become that person. Yet saying every morning, what I believe about myself is what I will become. So I believe the very best of myself. Are we believing the best of ourselves? And every time that we don't think something good about ourselves, can we stop that thought and say, cancel, cancel, and then say, I am being the best I can be, and I'm getting better every moment. Those are the types of things I believe, the intentionality, the consistency, and you teach people this all the time, Randy, and you've helped so many overcome that. I think it's important that we allow people to realize that they choose happiness, they choose to be a victim, they choose. And when they're willing to say, I choose to be upset, I choose to be angry, I choose to be a victim, that's when awareness sets in, and awareness being the first step of change. they can say, you know what? I choose to no longer be a victim. I choose to be the hero of my own life.
Excellent. I love the analogy that you used. I use a very similar one, and I was smiling because I always say to people, okay, so you've lived in the country for 20 years and you got a dirt road out, from your house to out to the street, and every day you drive in the same path and you've got ruts. I say the same thing. You've got these ruts, and so your car gets in there
I
and
love it.
so it's so funny, that analogy. I love it. There's two
No,
quotes.
you've got a great one. And see, when people choose to be deliberate and intentional and decisive, the minute they make that choice, then they can start learning how to be that person that they just said they desired to be. So I love that you use that analogy.
It's funny. And I say, so we're going to move to a different place and we're going to make a new path and we're going to make a
Yeah.
new rut in the road. But anyway, there's two quotes that I like. One is, you are not a hostage of your past, you are the architect of your future. I love that one. The quote that I've always heard and used is, um, the past is not a life sentence, it's a life lesson. But I really like this one because it's positive. You're not a hostage of your past, you're the architect of your future. How empowering is that?
Yeah. And isn't it interesting? They just have to make that choice. And I've had a lot of people say to me, oh, Dianna, you don't understand. I just don't feel like I can get better. I can't change. And I go, well, wait just a minute. Did you know that you made a new liver every 6 weeks, that you make new skin once a month? And in less than 1 year, you pretty much replaced all these body parts? You're making yourself new every single day. So don't sit and tell me you can't make yourself new. You're doing it already. You just have to accept the fact and accept a new way of being. And once you accept that and work on it, well, guess what? Your life changes.
That's true. The other one that I like, and this one has more of a, well, I'm just going to say it. This was from Iyanla Van Zandt. Until you heal the wounds from your past, you will continue to bleed into the future. I really like that too. These quotes just really struck me. They're very powerful. So we talked about the storyteller. You also have the thought change model, which is notice, ask, choose, focus. Let's talk about
Yeah. I I find that in the coaching, I would take people through this, and it really did make a difference because when they ask themselves these questions and really think about the thought that they're currently having, that's when it can change. And it says that, first of all, we've got to notice that the thought isn't serving us. And second of all, we have to ask the questions. And if the thought is about ourselves, then we ask, who would I be without that thought? And how would I feel without that thought? And then, of course, if the thought is about something or, a circumstance that's happening, then we say, is it absolutely true? Is it 100% true? And most of the time, Randy, it's not. It's not 100% true. And then we say, how do I act when I believe that thought? Because our thoughts lead to our actions, which lead to our results. And then who would I be without that thought? And how would I feel without that thought? And then we choose. And right there, that choice comes in again between B and D, birth and death. And then we focus on the choice that we've made, being deliberate and intentional about making that choice come about in our lives.
it just makes so much sense. What you say is just so, I love the way you say all of this. It's really, I don't know, it just really kind of cuts to the core of what we need to think about. Um, One of the first things I always have people do is the first homework I give them. I don't like to give homework because I figure by the time people come to me, they've worked themselves to death, okay? Trying to fix themselves, you know. But the first thing that I always say is I just want you to notice what you're saying to yourself. Because I don't think we know how much we hurt ourselves, how much we beat ourselves up. And really, when we eliminate what we say to ourselves, there's really not a whole lot left.
You know,
Right?
isn't that interesting? Because the most important person we tell our story to is ourselves.
Hmm.
We get to hear what we say all day long. And you know, one of the things that just came to my mind, I don't know if you have people do this or not, was what if you had a friend or your spouse or whomever you look up to make a recording of who you desire to be and have them say, you are a person that is skilled. You are a person that follows through. You are, because we believe what other people say about us a lot more than we do sometimes when they're just giving us a compliment. Yet they could play that over and over again and start cutting those new neural pathways with someone else's help. Have you ever done anything like that? I've
No,
not.
I
That's why
like
I
that. That's quick. I know. You downloaded something really cool. That's cool. That's good. That's good information. Okay, so let's talk about the story formation model. Okay,
okay.
so as you go through the day, you have many experiences. For each event, your brain shuffles through the maps um, you've built in your memory banks, much like searching through a filing cabinet or photo album for previous encounters of the same type of experience. Okay, take it from there.
Well, basically, once we go through that filing cabinet, we go, oh, this time is like that time, we instantly form a judgment. And we're judging machines. And if we don't believe that, just walk into a store and you go, I like that, I don't like that. Go to Netflix, for heaven's sakes, and start scrolling through the movies. I don't like that, I like this, I think I'll like this. We're judging all the time. And once we make a judgment because of our reticular activating system in our brain, I call it the RAS for short, is our RAS is like, to me, a Google search engine. You put into your computer what it is you desire. It doesn't show you everything on the internet. It only shows you what you ask for. So now we've made this judgment. We've told our brain what we believe. And our brain wants to look good and be right. And so it is going to make certain that reticular activating system is going to filter out everything that doesn't match up with your expectations, with your story, because the eyes will only see and the ears will only hear what the brain tells it to. And then we move forward. It is predicting our future with that new story that we just made up. And if we don't like the story, we've got to catch it between judgment and what we tell our reticular activating system and make a new story at that point and say, I don't like that story. I'm going to change it. After all, it's just an illusion in our mind anyway. Every
Mhm,
story is. It's what
mhm.
we make up and what we tell ourselves.
That's really, I really like that. Yeah, create a new story. We can do that.
Well, you're helping people do that every single day, is creating that new story in their mind.
Mhm,
And when you see somebody with a new story, I mean, they look different, don't they? They sit up straighter. They
mhm.
talk a little bit different. I think it's so fun to watch, and you get to see this every day.
I see it all the time. You know, that's why I love that we can do, you know, video conferencing because um, from one week to the next, I can see the change. I
Yeah.
can see the confidence all of a sudden that wasn't there the week before. Now it's there. It's amazing. And you're right. It shows. And you know, and that's a really good point, Diana, because um, we think that the way we feel does not affect others, and it truly does. And it also affects the way others treat us.
Absolutely.
So when we walk around with a victim mentality, we're going to be treated as if we're a victim.
Right. And if we talk about the lack that we have in our life, we just find more things that we lack. And if we talk about gratitude, we find more things to be grateful for. And I love what you just said is we send out an energy is what I call it. I worked in the physics lab when I was in college because I was taking physics and math and going in that direction. And it was so interesting to see and to learn that every single thing under that high powered microscope, I don't care what you put underneath it, was 99.99999% energy and 0.00001% particle, which means that we're more nothing than something, right? We're more energy. And our thoughts give us energy, and our actions portray energy, everything about us. And that's why I talk about those four energies of success that when you can watch somebody, if they walk in like they're confident, you feel it. It's an energy. When a person is grateful and always showing gratitude, it's an energy that we pass on. Positive energy, being in the present moment, having a purpose. And yet, like you said, a victim has an energy. And that energy, I mean, it almost like sucks the energy, like they're an energy vampire, right? Just sucking it right out of you. Uh, and they go away feeling better. You go away feeling worse.
That's so true. That's so true. You said the word
Yeah.
gratitude twice, and I like that. Gratitude is really one of the main keys to
Yeah,
changing our life and attracting what we want. Um,
I agree.
yeah, when we're grateful for every little thing, we get shown things just kind of come to us. And we can almost test it because if you're somebody that really has not embraced gratitude and you decide you're going to try it, I think the universe rewards you really quickly to sort of, I don't know if you've seen this, but I see this a lot. The universe rewards you really quickly to sort of reinforce that, yes, use gratitude because it's going to attract to you exactly what you want. Have you experienced that it like the first time you do it, it like shows you?
You know, it's so interesting that you bring that up, Patty. And I love the word that you use. And I want to make certain our listeners get it. You said be grateful in all things. You didn't say be grateful for all things. I mean, let's face it, I'm not grateful for some of the things that happened to me, yet I am grateful through those things, in those things while I'm going through them. Grateful for what I'm learning, grateful for, well, it's like when you go to the gym and you work out. Well, you're tearing your muscles. You're putting microscopic tears in your muscles, and that's how they build. And I believe when things are going badly for us or circumstances are terrible, that's when literally we're getting those microscopic tears in our life that builds us to be stronger and we can withstand more, we become more persistent. And so I really wanted to point that out that you said be grateful in all things, not be grateful for all things.
Thank
And what I've noticed is yes, I don't get out of bed in the morning until I say 5 things I'm grateful for. First of all, I'm grateful that I woke up and I'm grateful that I have breath in my lungs, right? And it's amazing how our day goes when we look for things. It brings us an abundant mindset. It brings us into a world that is so alive and so full of greatness instead of what the world wants us to focus on is all the negative and the bad things. And yeah,
hmm
good attracts good, bad attracts bad.
You're absolutely right. let's talk about the the journey model. Uh,
Okay.
it lays out a comprehensive map of the path you will follow through every chapter. So the journey model works much in the same way. We're going to talk about your one and only life, not the tale of a revered mythological figure. Think of this model as a journey, and along the way to your desired destination, you will be stopping at little towns. So,
Yes, it's a journey that we take. And every single chapter we start the journey. Every part of this pyramid, Patty, has limiting ways that we think and liberating ways. And I've broken those down so we can choose the liberating. And I've actually given ideas of ways that people can start training their brain to a more liberating way of thinking. But this journey is what we all go on. And we all have opportunities. Some people say, oh, uh, that opportunity was lost. And no, my mentor, John Maxwell, taught me an opportunity is never lost because somebody else found it. You know, you just missed it. And yet it's because we have this opportunity and we don't grab hold of it. We think that we're not capable instead of just grabbing it and moving forward, making mistakes along the way. And excuse me, many of us love to be in status quo. In fact, I think our brain likes to be comfortable and we settle in that comfortable zone and we have this opportunity and we start refusing it because we don't think we're good enough, we don't have what it takes, or it takes too much time, whatever it is. And that's when we need a friend, a coach, a mentor, someone to come alongside of us, whether it be a psychologist, a clinical psychologist, a counselor, I don't care who it is. We all need somebody sometimes to just give us a good swift kick and say, go for it. You can do this. And once we pass through that, we enter in the zone of uncomfortable. And so many people cling to that comfortable zone, even though they know everything they want is outside that comfort zone. It's like they live in this little cage where their thoughts of unworthiness are the bars, and the cage is their comfort zone. And they have uphill goals with downhill habits, and all they do is sit in that cage all day long. Once they're kicked out of the cage, they're uncomfortable. They're afraid. They're not certain what's going to get them because they don't have the comfort of that cage. And then it takes us through all these little towns that we're going to stop at through that uncomfortable zone and eventually get us in to where we start living a new life. And that now becomes our comfortable zone and prepares us for a new opportunity. And we just keep going round and round and round on that journey, right?
we do. So you take it, we go from town to town, sort of. Is that the kind of the illusion, the picture that you convey here?
Yeah, I put everybody in a car and just took them from town to town so they could really get the feel of it and to realize that that's where they're at in their life. And this thing I call priority switch is the biggest one because there's two main drivers in our life. We're either moving towards pleasure or away from pain. And most people think they're moving towards pleasure, yet 95% or more of the people are moving away from the pain of not having what it is that they desire. So it's
Right.
the pain that is forcing them to go forward. The priority switch is when we make something that we desire not to do to become more painful not to do it than to do it. Right. And so let's say that you have to make calls every single day. And that phone weighs 2,000 pounds. You don't want to pick it up at all. And it's more comfortable. The pain of picking up the phone is greater than the pain of not having the money that you could make from making calls. Eventually, though, you run out of money and it gets really scarce. And now the pain of not paying your bills becomes greater than picking up the phone and making the calls. And so I say when we can trick our mind and do our own priority switch to where, well, I had a gentleman, he was going to college. And he was procrastinating on studying for tests and getting his homework done all the time because he liked to go out with his friends. And so we had to make the pain of not having the homework done bigger than the pain of missing out with his friends. And Patty, you already know, he generally found that as the test became closer and closer.
That's
Yet
right.
we had to do it on the onset, and we started tricking his mind to where he would study, and then he went out with his friends closer and closer to the test time because he was prepared, he was aware of it. And now that kid is up for his third promotion. He's graduated from college. And I just love seeing where he's going. And he said, I use that priority switch all the time in what I need to do at work, what I need to do at home. And I mean, here he is. Well, I guess he'd be about 27 years old, and he's advanced very quickly in that company because of that.
So the priority switch is deciding that, just briefly, like, it's whether we're trying to avoid pain or go towards pleasure. Okay, so how does the priority switch pain or pleasure? What is
Okay, so let's go back to the kid in college. So his friends called and they'd say, "Hey, let's go out." And he knew he had homework and a test to study for. But the pain of missing out with his friends was greater than the pain of not having the homework done.
okay?
And as he did that night after night after night, pretty soon though, the homework was due the next day or the test was the next day. His friends called and said, "Let's go out." And he goes, "Oh, no, 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 I got to study." The pain of not being prepared was bigger at that point than going out with his friends.
Okay.
So what we did was we made the pain of not being prepared and not being able to enjoy his friends at the highest degree bigger and more painful than going out. So he started getting the homework done, started preparing for the test. Then when he went out with his friends, he felt so much better. He enjoyed being with them more. And it only took a few times, and he realized how much better he felt. And he realized how he was prepared for the test. He was starting to get better grades. And therefore, we just helped train his brain to a new way of thinking.
Okay. Yeah, that's really cool. Um, and I can see how that would help motivate somebody, help to make that switch really quickly.
Yes, ma'am.
You know, when we talk about comfort zone, I think one of the things that people tend to hold on to in that comfort zone is this false feeling that they have control over everything.
Yeah. We don't have control over anything, do we?
We don't. How do you help people break that need to control, and
Oh,
sort of change it to the point where they just are going with the flow? Because I always say, when you're trying to control things, you keep hitting a wall, you're stopping the flow, right? So, you want to be that fish. It just kind of goes with the flow. How do you help people with that?
I think the big thing is what I've told people to, especially during the pandemic. I had them write down everything that they wanted to control that they couldn't.
Mm,
And then look at that list and just gripe and complain and hit a pillow, whatever they wanted to do about that list. And then rip it up and say, I really don't have any control over it. And do that day after day for about 5 or 6 days. And pretty soon they start realizing the only thing they have control over is the way they think about those events. And so we start rewiring their brain by actually even having them write out what is it that you think about those events and what you will change. So now they start thinking about, I'll learn from this event when it doesn't go my way. I have a mantra. Things are always working out for me. And when the plane is delayed or whatever, I go, things are always working out for me. And it's interesting, Patty, they always seem to work out
They
for
do.
me. Yeah. And it's back to that gratitude thing you said earlier. You don't know what's happening. We're not in control of the universe. I mean, somebody cuts me off in traffic. I used to get upset when I was younger. And finally I went, well, I know their story. Maybe they're heading to the hospital and they need to get there
That's
quickly.
right.
Or maybe they saved me from being in a wreck that was about to happen.
Hmm.
You know, things are always working out for me. And
Hmm.
it makes our life so much easier and so much better. And the stress seems to not show up as much, right?
I agree. It takes away the resistance. We're either going with the flow or we're resisting. And I do the same thing, because I mean, yeah, if somebody's going slow in front of me, I say to myself, okay, they're saving me from something. There's some reason I shouldn't be going faster. Um, and so, and the airplane, the flights and the airport and things like that. I mean, that can be so frustrating if you fall into the pattern of, oh gosh, now I'm stuck, or I'm gonna have to sit here longer, or something like that.
You
Everything's
know,
always working out for me. That's exactly
so
right.
so true. The other part that I don't know that people realize is when we start having those thoughts and that I always say I'm fascinated. I don't use the word frustrated. I think frustrated is a limiting word because it shuts our brain down and only allows our brain to put out chemicals in our system that isn't good for our health,
It's true.
breaking down our immune system. Whereas if I say I'm fascinated, that's creative. That brings new ideas to life. Like,
Hmm.
what can I do in this instance? Now we're creating. I think too many people focus on the problem. And when you focus on the problem, excuse me, you're working to make something go away. When you focus on creating something new, you're bringing something new into existence. So focus on what you desire and figure out how to create it versus focusing on the problem and wanting it to go away.
I love that.
So those are some of the things in the book.
Hmm.
And I'm very excited that you've had me on the show today to be able to share.
Yeah, I just wanted to ask you one other thing that we can talk about. So what is the difference between an attitude and a mindset?
Oh, I love that you brought that up. Attitude is in our conscious mind, and mindset is in our subconscious mind. See, attitude is such that you can change it that fast. And they work together. Like if you have a judgmental mindset, but a positive attitude, you'll express that judgment in a very kind and loving way. Whereas, let's say you have a curious mindset, the questions you ask will be based upon the attitude that you have around that circumstance.
Mm.
And so they work together, yet they are separate from one another. And it's interesting to me in sports, they talk about mindset. And it seems like in business, they talk more about attitude. And I go, no, they're a combination working together to help us become who it is. I actually have a mindset assessment that people can take, Patty. It's at becomingmorebook.com. Becomingmorebook.com. You can go on, take an assessment that allows you to see, and it gives a bar chart and a pie chart on, do you have more limiting mindset or more liberating? And then it takes you, let's say that you have a limiting mindset in abundance and more favorable towards scarcity. Then I give 5 to 6 steps a day that you could do every single day. Very easy things that you can do that will help train your brain to a new mindset of abundance versus scarcity, gratitude versus entitlement, positive versus negative. And so there's a couple of chapters on mindset, in fact, in the book to help people out.
Okay, that's great. Thank you for that. Thank you for that. Okay, so your book is Becoming More. You can't get to better until you get to different. And now we took all of that apart. So for my listeners, and there's so much more in this book. There's so much more. So this is the tip of the iceberg, okay, guys? So you want to pick up a copy of this book, Becoming More, and you can learn a whole lot more because in an hour we cannot possibly cover all this. But Dianna, it's been so wonderful. Thank you very much. I appreciate this.
Thank
And
you,
this book, you put
Patty.
a lot of thought into this.
Well, I would love for people to go ahead and follow me on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, Dianna.Kokoszka. That's Dianna Kokoszka. And some have the dot in between, some don't. They'll find me. And then, of course, the YouTube channel where I'll put this on if you send to me as well. And that's Dianna Koko, just Dianna, Dianna Koko. So thank you, Patty, so
Okay.
much.
Thank you so much. It's really been wonderful. Appreciate it. Have a great day.
Well, you too. And let's stay in touch because I really like what you're doing for people.
Sounds good.